Aloha students, we are going to talk about and work on and learn how to create radial watercolor flowers using the elements of our line, color, and pattern. Along with, I'm going to talk about the principle of design balance. So let's get started. Before we do the actual art project, there's a couple things we're going to need to learn so that we understand what it is we are creating. So first, let's talk about the element of our color. Most of you should be familiar with color. Color is light reflected off objects, and another name for color is hue. So we have our colors of the rainbow, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. We also have our cool colors, which is our blues, greens, and purples, and our warm colors, our red, oranges, and yellows. We have our primary colors, yellow, blue, and red, and our secondary colors, violet, orange, and green. Now for this project, you will be using the element of our color, but you will be using a different color family called analogous colors. Now before you start your project, you should have reviewed what analogous colors are. Analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. They are like friendly neighbors. So we're going to take a look at a color wheel. Here is my color wheel. We're going to look for analogous colors. Those are colors that are neighbors to each other. So if I were to pick orange, the neighbors would be red orange and yellow orange. These three colors would be analogous colors. If I were to choose blue, then blue violet and blue green would be analogous colors. Let's try one more. If I picked red violet, my neighbors on the color wheel would be red and violet. Therefore, violet, and red are analogous colors. They are neighbors on the color wheel. Our analogous colors are what we're going to use for our flowers. When we paint inside the flowers, we're going to use analogous colors. As you can see, in this flower, we have our red, orange, and orange in there. You could have also used red, orange, and yellow. Analogous colors, they are neighbors on the color wheel. Right here, if we look at this flower, the person who created the analogous colors in here most likely used red violet, and blue violet. Those three are neighbors. They are analogous colors. So we are going to use our analogous colors for the insides of the flower, and you're going to choose either a warm color or a cool color for the background. Alright, moving on from color, we need to talk about the principle of design balance, because as you can see, our project is radial watercolor flowers, and we need to talk about what radial means. Now, radial is a term under a bigger term, balance, the principle of design or balance. So balance means a way of combining art elements to add a feeling of stability to a work of art. Now later we'll learn about asymmetrical and we'll learn about symmetrical. But today we need to focus on radial. Now the simple definition is radial balance shows equal parts radiating from the center. So if we look at our flowers, they all start with one thing in the middle, maybe a dot or a circle or a simple shape. And then the petals are radiating. They're going around that circle and they're extending out. They're pushing out. Same with what you'll see in these flowers. radial. Radial balance shows equal parts radiating from the center. So let's look at a little bit of a different definition. Radial design. That's what we're going to be using for our radial watercolor flowers. Radial balance is any type of balance based on a circle with its design extending from the center. Here's an example: a star, the iris around each pupil of your eyes, a wheel with spokes, and a daisy, among many flowers and other plant forms, are examples of radial balance. So our flowers are examples of radial balance. They start in the center, the petals extend, they move away from the center, but they're still going kind of in that circular form. Now we're going to be drawing radial flowers. So the directions have us saying, draw a dot or circle for the flower center. So here's our center. I would be creating a circle or a dot. Next, I would draw a shape around the dot and repeat, turning the paper around as you go. So I have my petal shape, and I'm going to continuously make that shape over and over and over and over again until I get it to the size that I want, creating that radial balance, starting in the center, moving away from the center, but still going in that circular motion. All right. Next, let's talk about line and pattern, okay? Because the last part for our project is line. You're going to need to use your knowledge of line to create those different flower shapes. So a line is a mark with a greater length than width. So maybe you want to be using your zigzag lines, or maybe you want to be using curvy lines or thin lines or thick lines. Now you take your knowledge of line and you can put them together to create your different types of flowers and petals. All right, I think we're ready to start. I will take a moment to set up, and then we'll go over the supplies that you're going to need for the Radial Watercolor flower project. Welcome back. I just wanted to go over some of the supplies you're going to need for the Radial Watercolor flower project. So you're going to need a container for water, for your paint water, some watercolor paints. I'm using tempera cakes. You're going to need some watercolor paper, mixed media paper, or some kind of thicker paper so that when you go to paint, your paper doesn't rip from it being wet. Then you're going to need a paintbrush and a permanent black marker. Now if you don't have watercolor, that's okay. You can still do this project. Either you can create your own watercolor by watching some of the how to create your watercolor videos I put on the Canvas page, or you could simply use a different material such as marker, crayon, or colored pencil. Now the first step we're going to do is we're going to need to create those radial flowers that we talked about. So remember, you're going to start by drawing a dot or a circle for the center of the flower. And you don't have to necessarily do these designs. They are here in case you need help and would like to use them. Next, you'll draw the shape around the dot and repeat turning the paper around as you go. So right now, you're going to create flowers all over your page. And you want to make them big enough so that you can paint inside of them. You can have a few little ones to fill in the space, but you want to make pretty big ones. And remember, they need to be a radial flower. They need to be starting in the center and moving out in a circular form. So I'll start by creating one, and you can watch, and then I'll give you some time to go and create the rest of your flowers and come back. Now you can pick anywhere on your paper you would like. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to start with a circle. And I'm going to do a simple design for my first one, just so I can get the hang of it. I'm going to do my petals. And remember, the directions said you can turn your paper around. This will really help you get that radial design aspect in there. So make everything nice and balanced. Now from here, I want to make the flower bigger. So I'm going to start making petals going around. And remember, you can move your paper in a circular form as you're moving around and adding your petals. And if I want to do some more, I can go ahead. I can make that even bigger if I'd like. Boom. There we go. So I have one of my radial flowers down. Now I need to create a bunch more. I want to fill up as much of my paper as I can with my radial flowers. So if you see in the example, there's a lot of flowers that take up the majority of your paper, and then there's some small filler flowers, which is all right. I'll demonstrate one more, and then I'm going to have you go and work on the rest of it, and then you'll come back. So let's start with that dot. This one I started with the circle. This one over here I'll start with a dot. And you're going to take your knowledge of line. So maybe I want to do my bumpy wavy line. And I'm going to move around in a circle. And I'm going to extend out to create my radial flower design. Pushing around and out to create my radial effect. And I can make this bigger, or I could keep going. So from here, you're going to move on and create the rest of your flowers. Remember, you want to create as many flowers as you can, taking up a lot of the space, using the smaller flowers to also fill in some space. You also have the directions or examples on your assignment page. So you can always go and look at this, or you can go ahead and just create your own. When you're done drawing your flowers out, come on back and we will talk about how to apply the analogous colors inside your flowers. Welcome back. So you have just created your radial designed flowers. Now before we start painting, let's review analogous colors, because you will be choosing analogous color schemes, analogous color groups to be painting the insides of your flowers. Now if I look at my color wheel, let's just review. Analogous colors are colors on the color wheel that are neighbors. So if I chose green, my neighbors would be yellow green and blue green. So blue green, green, and yellow green are analogous colors. They are neighbors on the color wheel. If I chose red, red orange and red violet are analogous colors. They are neighbors. You're going to choose analogous color sets to paint inside of your flowers. So if I look at the example, I would be using my analogous colors inside. So the analogous color for this one could be orange, yellow orange, and yellow. Again, the analogous colors could be for this one, red violet, violet, and blue violet. Now, depending on what type of watercolor you have, you may not have all of the colors that you see in the color wheel. That means that you are going to have to look at your color wheel and look at your watercolor set, and you may have to create the missing colors. You may have to mix the missing colors. So if I'm looking at my watercolor set, I only have yellow, green, red, and blue in my set. That means that I'm going to have to mix the colors to get what I want. So if I want purple, violet, if I want violet, I have to know that blue and red mixed together are going to make violet. If I want red violet, I need to add a little more red to the violet that I made. Now, to get orange, I'm going to need to mix my yellow and my red. Again, if I want to make more of a yellow orange, I would simply add more yellow to my orange that I made. If I want to make red orange, I would simply add more red to the orange that I made. So let's get started. I will show you what I'm going to do to create my analogous color flowers, and then I'll give you some time to go ahead and finish painting in the rest of your flowers and letting it dry for a little bit. So if I'm going to do my analogous color scheme, I think I'm going to create my red, orange, and orange theme. So I would need, if I'm going to do that, I would need to make orange. So I like to start by getting some water on my paintbrush, not too much, and I like to start with the lighter color of my paint. And don't worry about painting it perfectly onto the flower. As you can see, it's kind of bled and mixed together for the example. That's okay. We're just working on making sure we have those analogous color schemes in our artwork. So I'm going to paint my yellow on. And remember, I want to use the analogous color scheme of red, orange, and orange. But I have to create that orange. So I need to add some red. And I want to mix it. I like to mix it right onto my paper. Now I created that red, orange. And now I also wanted to just use red, right? Because part of my analogous color scheme was red, orange, and orange. So maybe I want to do the outer edges red. So then it kind of fades in to that red, orange, and then that orange in the middle. I want to be careful, and I want to stay as best I can within the lines of the flower, because remember, the background, we're going to be using one color only for the background. You'll either use a warm color or a cool color for the background. Now I'm going to kind of bring my red in towards the middle a little bit, so it creates that red-orange look. I can just blend it right in with the orange that I already made. Because my analogous color theme, remember, is red, orange, and orange. And I create that red-orange by simply adding more red to the orange that I had created. Now, the next thing you're going to do, because I demonstrated the one, is you're going to pick your different analogous colors for your flowers, remember colors on the color wheel that are next to each other, any combination of your analogous colors, and you're going to paint the rest of your flowers. After you're done painting your flowers, come on back and we'll talk about the background. Now, for example, if you don't have watercolor and you're using crayon or colored pencil, you're going to want to pick your crayon, color pencil, or markers, the 3 analogous colors. And then I'll quickly show you what you would do if you're not using watercolor. Alright, so I got my markers, and this is if you don't have watercolor, you're using markers or using crayons or your colored pencils. Now you can look on the traditional color wheel that just has those red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. On the color wheel, red, orange, and yellow, the basic color wheel, are close together. They are analogous colors. They are neighbors on the color wheel. Now what you would want is you would take this and you would color in your flower using the 3 analogous colors. So maybe you start in the center with your marker, and you can do any color scheme. You could go red, orange, yellow, you could go yellow, orange, red, and you can push the color out. I prefer to start with the darker color and then move towards the lighter color for blending reasons. So I did my red. The next neighbor is orange. So I'd push my orange out. And I can go right over that red. Does the same effect. We want to blend it. I'm going to push it, push it, push it towards the center of the petal. And then I'm going to end with my 3rd analogous color, which would be yellow. And my yellow will be where I blend the rest of it. And you're only using marker, crayon, or colored pencil if you do not have watercolor paints. You can also use marker and then maybe you just have a paintbrush and water, and you can put some water on your paintbrush and you can paint over the marker to kind of give it that painting look if you'd like. Otherwise, you can do this kind of technique where you start with a darker color like your red, and then you move to the next color, orange, and then your lightest, or you can flip it. But the most thing you want to remember is that you're using analogous color schemes for your flowers. So right now I want you to take the time to go and finish painting your flowers. When you're done, come on back and we'll do the background. Welcome back. So you should have now finished the step of painting inside your flowers with your analogous colors. So let's look at mine and figure out real quick what analogous colors I used for this flower. So for the flower right here, if I look at my color wheel, I used the analogous colors blue, green, green, and blue. They are neighbors on the color wheel. I have my blue, it goes into the blue-green, and then it goes all the way out to the regular green. And now if I look at this flower and I check my analogous colors, I used my yellow, yellow, green, and green to create the analogous colors inside of this flower. The next thing that you are going to do is you're going to pick one warm color or one cool color. So let's review real quick. My cool colors are my blues, greens, and violets, and my warm colors are my red, orange, and yellows. And I'm only picking one, so either I pick one cool color or one warm color, and I'm going to paint my background that one color. So if you use a lot of warm analogous color groups, So you used a lot more of those red, oranges, and yellows. You probably want to do your background with cool colors to help pop out or emphasize your flowers. If you used a lot of cool colored analogous color themes, then you would want to use a warm color background. If you were like me and you used all of the colors, then you go ahead and you just pick your one warm color. I think I'm going to go with yellow. So remember, you're choosing one warm or one cool color, and you're painting your background one whole color. And you want to make sure that you are moving the paint around. You're getting all the white spots. You don't want to leave anything not painted in. Remember, if you do not have paint, then you would do the same concept, pick a warm or cool color, but you would use whatever material that you have. So maybe you're using crayon, you would pick a warm or cool colored crayon, and you would color in the background. So I'm going to give you some time. Go ahead and finish painting your background, and then come on back and we'll finish up the rest of the project. Welcome back. So now you should have painted your background that one warm or cool color. You should now be completed with the project. Your next step is to simply check your work, make sure you don't have any white spots, that you have created those radial flower designs, you've used your analogous color schemes inside of the flowers, and you've painted your entire background. Once you are done and you are happy with your work, remember to review the assignment posted, review the rubric at the bottom of the assignment. You have 3 major things you're being graded on, so make sure you check that. Then once you are satisfied with your project, go ahead and take a picture of it and turn it into Canvas. Hope you enjoyed this project on Radial Watercolor flowers. I am super excited to see everybody's finished product.